for the last segment here, we're going to do a fairly quick one. This one we don't really have as much in-depth stats for, and it's a little bit sketchy because we're going off an Instagram photo. But we're still going to have fun with it. We're talking about the Calder Trophy rankings early in the season. I'm hyped for it because I think this is going to be a super fun Calder race. And, yeah, we can get right into it. We're going to start at the funny thing is, this will get better.
I'll say...
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just say that I haven't seen this list.
No.
Other than I have seen number 1. So that surprise has been tanked for me, but I don't know the rest of the list. So
yes.
so my reaction is your reaction, dear viewer. And keep that in mind.
Again, I'm going to preface this by saying that we're going to start at the very bottom with a player that I haven't heard a lot about. And therefore, I'm assuming, Caleb, you haven't heard a lot about. So I'm just going to kind of read based on stats. I can't necessarily say I've had the eye test for this guy. But we're going to start off at the very bottom, number 5 of this list. Seamus. That'd be Seamus. Seamus Casey.
Yeah.
Seamus Casey of the New Jersey Devils.
I can't say I've ever heard of this guy in my life.
No, I can't say I have either, actually. He is an unknown player to me. But he did start the season very strong. I don't know if he had his AHL stint or NHL stint first. I'm assuming AHL first. So assuming that, started the year 2 games down there. Again, a defenseman. Need to preface that. 2 games, 4 points. Gets called up to New Jersey. Plays 8 games and has 4 points. Very strong start of the year for him on the defensive side. Like I said, I don't know a lot about him. But there is one other big defensive name on this list, and you got to wonder if he's going to be competing with him for best rookie defenseman as we get into the later parts of this bit. But yeah, if you, Caleb, you want to...
This feels... Again, I will preface by saying I can't give much of an opinion because I can't say I've been watching enough Devils hockey to truly judge this kid. But this feels like one of the ones where it's like... you make a Calder Trophy race, like, whatever it is, like, 7 or 8 games into the season, you kind of have to pull some stuff out of your ass at a certain point.
Yeah.
Just because there isn't enough of a sample size. Yeah, this guy split his time between AHL and NHL. I look at the Devils lineup right now.
Not to say that he isn't deserving.
Which is
that's a very impressive stat line.
That's an impressive stat line for just coming into the lineup, but I don't know where he is now because he's not currently listed on the Daily Faceoff lineup as a
maybe he got dropped to
the
Devils. Maybe he got dropped to the AHL then. Maybe those most recent 2 games.
Maybe
there, yeah. Well, there you go. But anyway, if we want to move on, because like I said, I kind of want to move on quick. I'm sorry, Devils fans. I'm going to have to go watch my tape here on Seamus Casey.
Devils fans. Yeah, Devils fans,
it is
honestly,
no disrespect.
In the comments, sound off on how you think Seamus Casey is doing. Inform us. Genuinely.
And, I'm also curious if this was expected within the fan base for him to have this hot of a start. That is the other question I have. Because as somebody who is not as well-versed in the prospect pool over there in New Jersey, I can't say that I think I've heard his name before, but I can't say I know a lot about him. Moving on to a guy, Caleb. I think we both have heard plenty about this guy. There was a lot of rumors that he would win it. A lot of people still think that he should be first. And that's Matt V. Michkov, who has started the year very strong for Philadelphia. 9 games, 9 points, 4 goals, 5 assists on the year so far. Not that it necessarily matters that much, but just to show you, Philly has not been very good this year. I want to emphasize that right off the jump. Some of the worst. I remember seeing a stat earlier today of today being Monday. Earlier in the week we recorded this a bit earlier than it will drop, but Philly's had some of the worst NHL goaltending to start the season historically ever, which just shows you how rough of a team Michkov is currently working with, and he's a point per game. He's had a really, really strong start. It's just how strong the other candidates have been as well, which kind of makes it a little bit tougher to move him up the list. He will be a strong candidate throughout the entire season. And you know what's funny? out of any of the guys on the list that we've talked about so far, that being two, I think that he's probably the guy we're going to hear about most in the comments, truthfully. I could see a lot of people getting mad about his placement on the list. Speaking of which, Caleb, before I throw it over to you, I'm going to just throw this out there. I don't know if I said whose list we're using. I'm going to give credit quick. This is Hockey Forevers on Instagram. Make sure to go follow them. We're using that list. I think they've been posting Calder rankings throughout the entire season. And they were the first one I was able to find. But yeah.
Well, there you go. Shout out Hockey Forever. Your list is bullshit. No, that's mean. No, I just think it's a bit ridiculous to have him at 4 because I'd just be very interested to see what the rest of the list looks like.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's plenty of other deserving candidates, but this would be my one. Mishkov would be my one based on how he's played this season. Again, like a point per game on a terrible Flyers team is impressive, especially considering he's coming over from Russia at 19. That's a very impressive rookie season. I wouldn't be shocked, especially with unfortunately Celebrini's injury. I wouldn't be shocked. Like that's my front runner. Like if I were a betting man, I'd be placing money on him to win it.
Preseason, I probably would too. But there are. Yeah. I will say. And
He's backed that up. He's backed that up with his play.
I will say, as we get into this, I'll go through the stats and maybe my opinion on this will change. I think 4 is low. I definitely would have put him higher. But I think that a lot of people towards the top of this list could be mixed and matched this early in the year. I think there's just been so many impressive rookies to start the year that it's kind of tough. But honestly, if you want to put Michkov at 1, I'm not going to fight you.
Doing one this early.
Well, that is the funny thing. Yeah. I more just want to talk about all the candidates because the funny thing is there's a lot of players not on this list who might put in a fight as well.
Well, yeah, like I assume because of injury, Celebrini isn't on this list. But I can't claim to know how long term that injury is. I genuinely don't know.
I actually don't know.
I think it's a decent. I mean, it's a decent injury. It's kept him out for a while now. But if he comes back at any point in the season, I think that missed time will hurt him. I don't think he'll win it, but I think yes, he'll definitely move into this top 5 conversation. But yeah, I don't know. It's very in flux at the start of this season. So yeah, I'm interested to see who we have at 3.
Yep, and another really big candidate at 3 actually, who it's funny. I imagine on a lot of people's lists, these guys would probably be the top 2 because they both play for fairly big markets. They both were big in the conversations preseason as to potentially be high on this list. And that is our second, and I will say this, last defenseman on the list in Lane Hutson of the Montreal Canadiens, who started off the year, not point per game, I will throw that out right away, but again, defenseman, with 5 points in 9 games so far for Montreal. And he had a really strong start. I believe he had most of those points in the first half of those 9 games, if that changes where you want to rank him. I think he slowed down a little bit from if my memory serves me. But no surprise to see him on a list this early in the year. He's had a really, really strong start. He's going to be fighting for it all season long, I imagine. It's cool to see another defenseman on this list, honestly, with Casey. I kind of said in there that it'd be interesting to see if Casey's fighting with Hudson later in the year. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Hudson's probably going to be top 3 permanently throughout the entire season if I were to bet. But, regardless, I'll toss it over to you, Caleb. I don't know if you have anything to add to that. But I think he's been really impressive so far to start the year. I think so, too.
I can't say that I've been watching too much Montreal hockey at this point. But it's a name that I've been hearing lots about. He's been getting big minutes as a rookie, which as a defenseman, that's always one of the things I'd want to look at is how much do they trust him to actually be out there on the ice. And he currently has stats from the Montreal Reddit, so I mean take that accuracy with what you will. But I trust him. It says he currently leads Montreal with 23 minutes and 10 seconds per game. Wow. Ranks 30th in the NHL. That's impressive. I think they obviously trust him a lot. And that's a big indicator for me. With a defenseman though, especially, I mean, this is a whole season conversation where it's like you're the one big thing you're gonna look for is consistency. Can he avoid bad mistakes? I mean, even just looking at this, it's like Lane Hudson on his turnover against the Rangers that ends up in the back of their net. Like there'll be mistakes like that'll kind of knock your case a little bit. He's a rookie. I mean, those mistakes will happen. But just can he stay consistent when he's playing that many minutes? That's probably the thing I'm going to look towards to say, like, can he sustain this? Are we going to continue to have this rookie defenseman in the top 3 conversation? That's what it is for me.
I was trying to look professional too, moving my mic and holding it closer, but I can't do that. My mic's a very sketchy setup, so I apologize.
I mean, this isn't even right. This isn't
no, I'm aware. I was trying to join you and be cool, but my mic's like attached to a whole stand, and that was hurting my wrist.
I mean, you want another one? You want one?
Dang! He's got 2. He's double the professional.
I gotta be careful. I mean, I'm not necessarily supposed to have this. There's been a couple people who have walked this little catwalk above me and just like stare at me while I do this.
Really?
I'm in a lecture hall.
Is there a catwalk above it?
Not a cat, not a catwalk.
What?
It's like a little like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just a little hallway that cuts through the middle. That I've had a couple people walk by.
Oh.
But yeah, we'll see. I'm getting kicked out of here. I'm getting kicked out of here in like 20 minutes anyway, so we'll see how that goes.
That's true. Anyway, we're number 2. Moving on to number 2. And it's funny because I haven't really heard that much about this guy, but if you asked me preseason, he would have been very high on my list. I've always been really big on this guy. I think he's going to be a really, really strong player in the future. And as we're seeing right now, maybe the future is now when it comes to this guy. As he is... We talked about this team a lot. He plays for a very, very good hockey team, and it's a team that drafts very well, and a team that we were talking about this guy potentially being the next guy to really step in and be one of those young guys who carries the torch next for them, and that is Logan Stankoven at number 2 for the Dallas Stars. Starting off the year, he is the second guy on this list to be a point per game, with 9 points in 9 games. The crazy thing is he only has 1 goal. 1 goal, 8 assists so far, 3 plus minus, which, again, take plus minus as you will. But I haven't seen how he's been playing this year. As being said, I already said I haven't heard a lot about him this year, which surprised me to see him that high. But knowing his play in the past, it doesn't surprise me at all. He would have been my, like, black sheep pick to win it. I didn't see a lot of people necessarily predicting him. I feel like he's going to be in the conversation all year long. And I wouldn't be surprised if he stays up even this high, around like 2-3. He's going to be able to put in a good fight for it. We just have to see what happens with it. As I'm sure it'll get more interesting as the season goes on. But Caleb, I'll toss it over to you. What do you think of him so far?
I think this is kind of where I would expect him. My ranking probably right now is Mishkov 1, Stankoven 2, the guy who's going to be at 1 at 3. I know you're gonna have something to say about that. I think it's obviously point per game, very impressive. To match Mishkov on that is impressive. I think he's going to get the boost of just playing on a good team. It's going to make you look better. I think that'll help him by the end of the year, whether like he performs or not. I think that helps. And I think it says something that Dallas is trusting him already on their first line. Looking at this, playing alongside Robertson and Hintz, like that just shows how much trust they have in the kid. I have a lot of faith that he's going to continue to play well. There's been a lot of kind of groundswell of hype for him for a long time, and Dallas is just kind of this like absolute, pardon my pun, star factory in terms of drafting and developing talent, and he's just kind of the latest in a long line of doing that. It sucks if you're a fan of a Central Division team, but this really is just kind of the rich getting richer as of the past couple of years. So this placement to me is totally justified.
Nope, I completely agree too. I think he's going to be a spectacular player when he breaks into his own. He's already starting to show it this early in his career. I don't necessarily think he'll stay at a point per game pace. I don't think Michkov will either, honestly, as a prediction. I think both of them will probably end up somewhere in the 70s or 60s for points. But regardless, both of them are going to have really, really good rookie years. If you're looking for a forward face-off for the Calder, like two forwards who are going to absolutely just go to town, it's going to be between Stankoven and Michkov, I think. I think part of the reason that this Calder race is so interesting is because it's a large, diverse group of different players, being the fact that there's 2 defensemen on this list, 2 forwards, and as we're about to get into, a goalie. But that's what makes this race so far this year so interesting to me, because of the fact that it's going to be really tough to rank it at the end of the year. I have a funny feeling we're going to have a controversial Calder no matter who wins it, as my prediction. But regardless, if we want to move into the very end here and talk about the player that is at number 1, and part of the reason I wanted to do this segment, because as a fan of the team he plays for, I wanted to yell at somebody about the fact that he hasn't won the starter job yet, and that is Mr. Dustin Wolf. Starting off the year, he's played in 4 games, .924 save percentage, 2.74 goals against average. I believe he is 3-1 on the year. As for wins, I don't have that in front of me. For some reason, Elite Prospects has not updated his win-loss. But off of memory, I believe it's 3-1. He's had a ridiculous start to the year. And you can definitely... And I remember you made the argument that he would be at 3 on your list, Caleb. I think that's fair. It completely depends on how highly you value goalie stats and how highly you value a rookie immediately stepping in as a starter. But I think if he continues to put up starting minutes for Calgary and Calgary continues to look like a good team, he's probably going to run away with it, honestly. That would be my prediction. I think that and there's a lot of ifs there, I will immediately say that, because Calgary needs to continue to play well for that to happen. But I think that if the Flames end up being a playoff team or a near playoff team, a large part of that is going to be on the back of Dustin Wolf's goaltending performance. And regardless, I'd be surprised if he didn't end up high, or at the very least in the top 5 at some point throughout the year. I'm not saying he's going to stay at number 1 all year. The Flames are a small market team. He's going to have to fight for it. But I think that he's definitely going to have... It's going to be a really interesting conversation. As for ranking, especially like I said, I think Michkov and Stankoven both have the potential to put up at least 70-point seasons. If we're talking about Dustin Wolf as a guy with like a .915 save percentage at the end of the year, the permanent starter for the Flames for most of the season, it's hard to rank that. It's hard to kind of figure out who gets it over each other, because obviously 2 different positions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll toss it over to you, Caleb. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think you're just making a lot of assumptions there that I think are kind of unbased. And
wow.
In terms of both, yeah, that's shocker. Shocker that some Flames homerism on this podcast. I like to consider myself more of a Flames realist, as also a Flames fan. And this isn't to discredit how Wolf has played so far. The stats you read out are fucking killer, and he's had the play to back it up. I haven't had a chance to watch like a ton of Flames hockey, but I was able to watch the end of the Pittsburgh game, even just like watching that shootout as his first ever NHL shootout. That was pretty impressive. So obviously props to him, and is a big reason why the Flames got out to the start that they did, despite not having necessarily the roster to back it up. But that's the thing, they don't have the roster to back it up, and I think a lot of the reason that he's getting the Calder hype right now is that the Flames are successful. And predicting that to continue is just a losing game. I'm very sorry to admit it, but it is. And yeah, like because when you talk, you're like, it's like, oh yeah, like if the Flames could keep this up, well, no, they're not going to.
But you gotta
I'm
understand,
sorry. Like
Calgary is
hate
consistently the number 17 team, and when I said miss the playoffs, I don't mean like make. I'm not predicting the Flames to be a playoff team. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I don't think it's out of the question to say they miss it by like 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5 games, somewhere in that range.
You think Wolf wins the Calder even if that happens?
I think he's going to have a good case.
By like 2 or 3 points.
I think he's going to have a case. If he's the starter and he's putting up really good numbers, he's absolutely going to have the case. Have a case for it.
That's the other thing though. He's also not the starter. And I know obviously you're going to like yes,
he's not.
Yeah, before you go off on your rant about why he should be, and I'm with you. With you on that. But the fact of the matter is that he isn't. And like, are you going to give the Calder Trophy to a backup goalie?
Just for context for everybody, Dan Vladar just let in 5 goals earlier tonight against the Golden Knights.
My point is not that this is correct or anything.
Yeah.
But we're basing this early Calder case. That's what it is. We're basing our early Calder case off of a 4-game stretch for a team that is performing abnormally well, and that's not going to continue as a backup goalie. And that's just a lot to hitch my wagon on.
Backup's the wrong word.
Compared to
backup is the wrong word, though, because he's been splitting.
Splitting duties.
It's a 50-50 split. That's not backup.
I'll give you the semantics.
There's a difference.
The semantics. I'm not going to. I'm not gonna budge on my position. I'll give you the semantics. But like, if they're gonna fend off Mishkov and Stankoven and maybe Celebrini if he comes back, not gonna happen. I'm sorry, Simon.
I don't know.
You can live in your fantasy world.
It's been a fat minute since we've had a goalie Calder. It's been a good minute. I think.
Gonna continue to be a minute. I'm so sorry.
I don't know, man. I don't even necessarily think the Flames have to do that well for him to have a shot at it. I think that if he puts up really good minutes, like really good stats as the starter, I don't necessarily know how much the wins are going to matter. I think that because you got to look at it like this, the rarity of a rookie goalie coming into the league and instantly putting up like a .915 save percentage, that is borderline unheard of at this point in the NHL. You got to look at it like that. And I think
he's also played 4 games.
Fair, but
that stat is not going to uphold.
I'm not saying it will. He has a 925 right now. I'm dropping it 10%, Caleb.
I don't think he's going to sustain 915 either.
What do you think he's going to have if you were to throw something out there? Because I think
it'll hover. I think it'll hover around league average. Like and that's not even like a shot at Wolf. It's just like I think the team in front of him isn't good. And
for a starter, I don't think 915. And you talk about 915 is like higher league or higher starters.
And I would bring it down from that. And I you talk about you don't think wins will matter. Sure, if he keeps up these stat lines, maybe you're right. I think that's unrealistic, keeping up of stat lines. And I also think you brought up a good point.
The amount of shots he's taken per game.
Calgary's a small market team, and they're the only reason they're in the spotlight right now is because they're doing good, but nobody expected them to. As that falls off, as we've kind of seen, however many losses it's been in their last like 4 or 5 games. Was it 4 losses in 5 games? Something like that.
I don't know.
Something like that. But as that stretch continues, instead of the 5-0 start to the season, this hype will die down. Like, I'm sorry. I hope you're right. As a Flames fan, I hope you're right.
We should agree to disagree because we have to do an outro here before you get kicked out.
Yeah, I get kicked out of the library in 9 minutes.
But thank you, Hockey Forever, for your lovely graphic. It looks very nice.
Thank you, Hockey Forever. I'm sorry I said your list was shit.
Well, I don't. You know what? To give my rankings, and I'm not going to. I'm not going to try and replace Casey here because I can't necessarily think of someone off the top of my head to replace him with. I would probably go with an order of Casey, Hudson, Stankoven, Michkov at 2, Wolf at 1. And that's for now. If you're right and Wolf's stats start to drop, then I agree with you. He'll move down the list. But I think for now, he absolutely deserves the number 1 spot. I would have a hard time just like fight. He's 3-1 is a very impressive start for a rookie goaltender. I think if he keeps on putting up numbers like that, it's going to be hard, even as a small market team. It's going to be hard to dispute that.
You know my contention with it. I'll leave it at that. I'll agree to disagree, so I don't get kicked out of the library here.
All right.
Let us know what you think in the comments. I'll hand the mic to you. Sound off, you know?
Yeah.
Use this. This is a great microphone. Visual we got going on here. Yeah. Sound off in the comments.
I thought it was very funny that you were holding the mic upside down at one point and kind of swinging at the screen. Like you were holding it by like the ball.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you were doing that. I thought that was funny. Anyway,
I haven't really been paying attention to what I'm doing with this stupid thing. It's a prop. We'll move on to the outro.
All right.